Hi everyone. Today I wanted to talk about a French film from 1979, Buffet Froid, starring Gerard Depardieu. And it's a very dark comedy, one of the darkest comedies I think you're ever going to likely see. It's a murder story. There's quite a few murders in here. It's about 10 of them. They're all delivered in a kind of deadpan style. And the movie is set in a depopulated Paris. It was filmed in the 1970s. There was a western suburb that was being kind of built from scratch. I think it's called, the area is called La Defense, and they were building these high-rise apartment and office complexes, a kind of concrete jungle that was not much in tune with the traditional look of Paris, dehumanizing perhaps element to life, to modern life. And it's very strange, cold architecture. The movie is set at night, and the first scene to get into the mood of the movie. And I'm not going to talk too much about the details of the movie because the element of surprise is quite integral to one's enjoyment of the movie. But the first scene, talking about a depopulated Paris, is set in a brand new subway station, but it hadn't opened yet, so it's immaculate, it's shiny, it's nighttime, and we have what's called in the supplements very much an Edward Albee kind of scene where Gerard Depardieu, the star of the film, accosts the only other person in the subway station, played by the great Michel Serrault. And he stalks him. He wants to become his friend, and he tells him a strange story about how he gets this impulse to just kill somebody. Gerard Depardieu does, and he brings out his switchblade, and of course Michel Serrault is trying to get away from this crazy man. So the knife becomes a very integral part of the plot, as does the overcoat that I think Depardieu wears continuously. There's maybe one or two scenes in bed where he takes it off. So it's the randomness of life, a modern life. He goes home to an apartment building, a high-rise apartment building that recently built that hasn't yet been occupied. He and his wife, Gerard Depardieu and his wife, are the only occupants in this building. So when we see it, Gerard Depardieu walking all by himself on a huge entryway, which was built like rolling, like in undulations, like you were on a sea with waves, and we just see this one light up in the window, which is where Depardieu and his wife were living. But then they get another occupant comes by and arrives on the scene, and murders are starting to happen. And Depardieu goes up to see who this man was. He turns out to be a police inspector that is totally indifferent to the murder story that Depardieu is telling him. So the film escalates into more murders, more kind of madcap kind of farce, almost a vaudeville. It almost sometimes seems like a vaudeville act. And the director, Bertrand Blier, his father was a famous French actor, Bertrand Blier, and he is also in the movie. He was famous. You might recognize him if you're familiar with French films of the 1940s, 50s, 60s. Great character actor, evidently a great actor on stage. He plays the police inspector. And there's a terrific interview with the director. They didn't give a date, and it's about 25 minutes, and he goes very much into detail on the making of Buffet Froid, and casting his father as the police inspector. And he talks about when he was a teenager in the late 40s, and his father was playing a lot of roles on stage, and when he would come home from school, his father would say, "Let's rehearse. Come on, let's get to work." So he was very conversant with stage plays and dialogue in particular. And this is a movie, even though it's visually odd, distinctive, it's the dialogue that really propels the crazy story. And you need great actors to pull off a conceit like this, because even though Blier has made very unusual films his whole career, this one in particular is kind of an outlier. And he catches Blier in a screenplay, which won the César for Best Screenplay that year. He catches the musical rhythms of the dialogue, the really strange, the really strange and almost kind of cold atmosphere that the dialogue contributes to. We never really quite get our bearings. There's a bunch of other great actors along the way. We get Jean Carmet, who plays the third man in this Three Musketeer adventure murder story that they're involved in. And we get a couple of fairly famous actresses as well. Genevieve Page has a very important role in the film, as does Carol Bouquet. Now, she was an actress that always stops me cold whenever I see him. She was a model actress, and she was really good at having that kind of blank model-ish kind of face. But it's so distinctive, it's just so mysterious looking, and Blier really uses her well in this movie. And if you don't know who she is, she was in Louis Buñuel's last film, That Obscure Object of Desire. And she also won a César later on for Best Actress in Too Beautiful for You, which was also directed by Bertrand Blier. But maybe American film goers might know her most. She was a Bond girl a couple of years after this in a movie called, in the Bond movie, For Your Eyes Only with Roger Moore. But we're a long way from we're a long way from James Bond here, but we were very close to Louis Buñuel. And in the interview with Blier, he does mention the discreet charm of the bourgeois and the late Buñuel. If you are kind of in tune with the kind of surrealistic, oddball comedy of Buñuel's late films, this is very much on a par with that. And Blier says, I didn't really, when I was writing the screenplay, I wasn't actually thinking about it, but he said everything is a building of other movies that you've seen. And he also says that every time he writes a screenplay, he thinks he can go in his room and in 2 weeks he can get a screenplay and write a scene a day, but it never happens. But it happened with this film. He says, I don't know where it came from, but it was like working out a mathematical equation. Everything just seemed to fall in place. And it has that playwright, that play-like structure to it. It's in acts, and we get a third act that's totally different than the first two acts as far as its atmosphere and its scenery. As we go from the city, in the end we go to the country. And we get a Nick Pinkerton commentary, which I found really good. I mean, just so full of information. And he confronts the misogyny of that Blier is often accused of, and he reads some really good passages from. I didn't write the author's name, but it was a female author who has written the only study of Blier's films, in which he defends Blier against the charges that he often gets as being misogynist. And in the interview with Blier, he confronts it as well, and he says, I don't know, I don't think I'm a misogynist. I said, I'm a misanthrope for sure. I mean, his men are dumb. They're very comical, but they're very stupid. And that's part of the kind of farcical nature of this particular film, which again was very much an outlier. Now, Blier had made two films, at least two, with Gerard Depardieu, that were very successful, Going Places and Get Out Your Handkerchief, which was the previous film to this film, and he won the Oscar for Best Foreign Film that year. And although when Blier was shopping the script for Buffet Froid, he got, all the producers said, "There's no way. Why would you want to make this? This is ridiculous, this movie." But then Albert Sarde, a famous film producer of some of the great directors of the second half of the 20th century, he was only in his late 20s there, when Blier showed Sarde the script, Sarde laughed uproariously. He said, "Oh, we got to make this." And then when he won, but where are they going to get the money? And but then when Blier won the Oscar had some cachet, prestige, so he was able to get the money for this. But the movie did bomb. They brought it out right before Christmas. It's not a Christmas movie, believe me. But he did win the César for Best Screenplay, and it never opened in America commercially, even though both Going Places and Get Out Your Handkerchiefs had the commercial releases in the U.S., and they were hits, and they were repertory movie theater staples in the 70s and 80s. It never opened in the U.S. until it played at the Public Theater in 1987, and Blier says in his interview that it's on TV all the time. Somehow it's become a cult movie, and I read some of the contemporaneous reviews of the movie, and boy, I tell you, they were pretty scathing. I know Blier survived. Blier is a kind of strange director in that he was very popular, because of his first two movies, and he had a couple of other movies, and he was infamous too because he was such a transgressive filmmaker. Beaupère, I don't think it was released on DVD, but I'm not sure we're ever going to get a Blu-ray of that. But this was the spirit of the 70s, where it kind of like anything goes, and we didn't have the kind of puritanism that we have today from both left and right. So Blier's reputation he's sort of been forgotten, at least in the United States. Whether he's still popular in France, I don't know. This is a Kino Lorber release that comes with this interview, which is unusual. I think it was released in 2019, the Blu-ray release, and it includes a commentary, like I said, with Pinkerton, and it includes this little booklet. Gavin Smith producing a pretty good essay as well. And it's also, I'm recording this, I'm probably going to publish this. Today is the 13th. I think there's a week left of the Kino sale, and Buffet Froid is part of this sale, and I believe it's only $7.99 right now. So if you like this kind of unusual, if you've ever seen Little Murders, that was referenced a couple times in the supplements, which was a Elliot Gould movie directed by Alan Arkin with a screenplay by Joel Pfeiffer, who has a very similar attitude, murders in the urban jungle, all delivered in a deadpan style. If you like that movie, I think Buffet Froid might be up your alley as well. Okay, so thanks a lot for everybody who listened to me. I do appreciate it. Comments are welcome. Take care.